Good to you?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So today we're going to talk about going the distance, and this is something that has been an ongoing project. Whoops, I'm sorry. And the first time I presented on this was for the Leading Big in Small Places conference last November in 2020 through the leadership conference, or the leadership cohort that I did with Kristen Fronichario. So you heard her talk about that a little bit this morning. But anyway, going the distance is about turning your adversaries into supporters by using remote library services. And I'm not the most comfortable with presenting, so you guys are going to have to bear with. Most of you know me, and you know, so if you want to interject at any time and ask me a question, that's fine. Otherwise, you know, we'll take questions at the end. So with that said, do you have parts of your service area that are a long distance from your library? Do you want to find creative ways to provide improved services to those areas while helping change perceptions that people have about your library and its services? We've all heard about that field of dreams where they said, build it and they will come. But when you can't build a branch and you can't afford a bookmobile, how do you overcome the mindset that your library has nothing to offer folks in the far off corners of your service area? So like Lisa said, my name is Lisa Crummel, and I'm the director of the Munising School Public Library. We are a combined use school and public library located right in the heart of the UP, right on the shores of Lake Superior, and we serve all of Alger County. That's the entire county. And we do that from our main location inside the Munising Middle and High School. And today I'm going to speak with you about how we turned our adversaries into supporters with remote library services using creative solutions to reach our furthest patrons in areas where folks are more skeptical than accepting of what we might have to offer. So adversaries? What adversaries, right? Everybody loves us. People truly do, don't they? We all know that it's not always the case. And when funding depends on your donors and your voters, it's really important to get things right. So our library had an uphill battle to change the opinion of some of our outlying townships. And with a very few creative changes to our services and some interesting collaborations and ideas, we were able to turn many of those adversaries into supporters in just a few years. So in order to do that, I have to turn the clock back a little bit for you to 2008 and give you some background. With our income, basically only penal fines, a little bit of state aid, and donations, we were in trouble. Our funding was so bad that we nearly went under. We were down to the minimum 10 hours required by the state. We had canceled all of our subscriptions and all of our new book purchasing. There was no staff. I was a substitute at the time, and only a director was left. The school district had infused funding to keep the doors open to the public in a last-ditch effort to secure more local funding. We were actually in the hole to the school district. They were some pretty dark days, and we knew that something had to change. Knowing that something had to be done, a group of concerned citizens approached the county board, and the county board took action. And remember, we're a school public library. Our governing board is the school board. Our legal service area is the school district. And we've been this way for 100 years. So we had to come up with some kind of solution. And there was no solution for a school library to do anything. It had to come from the county. So the county board quickly took action, and they appointed a county library board with no county library. They quickly put together a millage question to be put on the next ballot that would fund county library services throughout the entire area. Their hope was that if they could prevail, there would become a stable source of funding that would not only save library services, but actually help them grow. The funding asked for was just enough to meet the 0.3 mil match in order to qualify for state aid. And then a contract was drawn up between the county library board and the public library at the school. And that would ensure continuity of what we had already built and already had in place. So everyone had their fingers crossed. So what could go wrong, right? It sounded like a great plan, but we found out that lots could go wrong. When a newspaper editor from an outlying township ran a front page opinion article about why the voters should not vote, why the voters should vote no on the upcoming library millage, things looked really dark. His article claimed that the library was way too far away. He said there would be no benefit to the township there for the tax dollars that they would be paying. It was around that time that was the first time that I had visited Grand Marais. And I heard from people as we were there on behalf of the library to tell them what kind of services we had. A phrase that I had never heard before with regard to that area. They said, "We are an island unto ourselves." And I listened as they told me how the ambulance had asked for countywide millage, yet the ambulance took so long that they had to form their own ambulance corps in order to get people to the hospital on time. I then heard about how they didn't have any sheriff patrol and how there was any type of emergency, there would take an hour for the state police to get there. And there was no one for them to depend on. They were, in their opinion, taking care of things themselves. They were an island unto themselves. So of course, I realized that they were skeptical of one more countywide service. But the county library board just held their breath, kept talking to people, and waited to see what the outcome would be. So when the millage did pass, victory was sweet indeed, and made all the sweeter knowing that there were those who actively wanted that ballot to fail. Overall, it passed in the county 2-1. And that was fantastic. And it was a testament to the services that the library had been providing up till that point in time. But in Burt Township, where Grand Marais is located, the news was not so good. The proposal had failed 2-1. So we knew that there was a lot of work that would have to happen. And as one of the county library board members stated, as we were working on the contract, it's time for the library to go out and win some hearts and minds. So that's what we decided we had to do. So after the county library board and the school board hammered out their service contract, we decided we had to tackle Grand Marais first, way up in Burt Township, because that was the most challenging distance. And that is no small feat. You know how it's set up there on those pristine shores of Lake Superior, that beautiful summer drive that you take through the national park, that 48.3 miles of curves and trees and water is one of the most picturesque routes you'll ever see. Then there's winter. And we all live in the UP, so we know that winter is a challenge no matter what. But winter right there on the shore of the lake, well, it's actually impassable. That route isn't even open to us in the winter. They close the road down. So you have to get to Grand Marais in the winter by way of Seney. For us, proving that we could reach our patrons at such a distance was going to really put us in good standing, I thought, with the patrons up in that area. And because I had just become the new director, I really felt that I had something I needed to prove. So how we were going to do this in an affordable manner, we weren't really sure. Of course, we were adding all these digital services right around that time too. Overdrive was really, coming into its own. And so we immediately wanted to get on board with that and let people know. But in a county so remote with poor cell coverage and many places literally off the grid, let alone no internet in a lot of places in that area, there's no internet, there's no cell signal. We needed a really basic solution on how we were going to get physical materials to a location where people could access them without having to spend half a day to get there. First, we figured we'd tackle the obvious, and we talked to the township, and we set up Wi-Fi and a computer with printer in the town hall, not just in Burt Township, but actually in other townships too. We contracted with the local internet service provider so that they could have internet and the bill would come to us for the internet connection. We then held a few library card sign-up days at the township building and did lots of reaching out to make connections in that area. Talk about our services, let them know what we could do. And then we worked with Sean at Spiritland to tailor our records in Cersei for our use so that we could identify those patrons that were in that outlying area at a glance. And then we decided we were just going to go for it. So I've always described this as saying it all started with 2 totes and a Sharpie. And literally it did start with 2 totes and a Sharpie. I went down to Family Dollar and I bought 2 plastic totes and I labeled them and I got them ready for my outlying townships. We gave one to them and we sent an empty one along as well, for them to keep there to get our back and forth started. And we based it on rides. So it all started with 2 totes and a Sharpie. Well, actually 4 totes because we did add Rock River. But we created a book transit for our patrons to get their requested library books sent out to their local area. Our patrons can now place holds on anything in the catalog and have it delivered closer to home. We, at the same time, began a loan system to the township itself to beef up any available books and magazines that they might have on bookshelves there for people to browse in. We would send new releases and popular titles out there for people to look at, along with our posters, our calendars, flyers, newsletters, bookmarks, anything that we could put in there to increase the amount of information that they were getting about our library and what our library was doing. It was based loosely on rides, but it had kind of a books by mail feel. And we shipped those swap totes out to them bi-weekly, delivering everything our patrons asked for without them having to drive the distance to come into us. We didn't care if it was they didn't have a car or the weather was bad, whatever. If they lived in an outlying township that we could service with one of these couple locations, be it Burt Township or Rock River, we would send their things out to them. So our initial supply investment was $24 and some copy paper and a bunch of used manila packing envelopes. And we figured, well, if we fail, we fail, but we're just going to jump in and see what we can do. So this is actually a mock-up of what we put on the exterior of any of the packages that have library materials. So only thing that anybody from the township ever sees is a package. There's a person's name and the phone number. And if they don't pick it up before a certain date, they are to put it back in the tote and send it back to us. If anybody has any questions, they go ahead and do that. And we cleared it with the patron beforehand. Hey, can we give them your phone number and have them call you when it arrives? Because we don't always know, when the tote's going to get there. It totally depends on the driver. We know what day, but not what time of the day. So they usually just shoot them a call and let them know it's there. But we packaged those patron requested items securely. We put that privacy label on and we sent them off in the totes and we crossed our fingers and said, okay, we hope this works. And the person at the town hall, would let them know. And it seemed like, hey, this is working. We labeled everything. We labeled the totes. We stuck labels on everything so that everybody would know that this was the library doing it. And we made sure that the things that we did said very clearly, like it does on the bottom, that this service is made possible because of Alger County millage funding. And thank you for supporting the library. People loved this service. We were amazed at how many people said, I heard about this from my friend. Can we do this? Can we do this? And with a high senior population in Alger County, there are an awful lot of people who, they don't drive as much. They may have limited income. They might only come to town once a week or once every 2 weeks. And so it became very popular with those who especially, really didn't go very far from home. So how did we do this? Well, Here you see a picture of Diane. Diane drives the Altran bus. Altran is the Alger County Transit Authority. We use that local bus transit and we paid them on a per trip basis. Most months it comes in around 16 trips, maybe on average, for going up to Grand Marais, back and forth, going out to Rock River Township. And Rock River Township, we use that as a base because their township hall had people at it. So we used that as a base for 3 other townships, and they were all so close together, people could just drive there and pick their stuff up. So anyway, the Altran drivers are our heroes. They drive through some of the worst weather in the state. They keep an amazing schedule. They are so good to us. And a real shout out to Diane. She's been hauling our books around the county for years now and always greets us with that gorgeous smile. So the bus riders in our area, they're really familiar with those little blue library totes that ride the bus with the senior citizens and the preschoolers, and loads of those Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore backpackers who seem to be everywhere all summer long. Those library markings on the totes let people know their library's working. As they sit there and ride the bus, they can see library happening, and it works all across the county. They ride along every Wednesday, every other Friday. People see them and have remarked to me, I saw your little totes going to Grand Marais. So there will be glitches, some of them small, some of them big. There'll be holidays where your schedule might get messed up. There's going to be weather events. You all know we have lots and lots and lots of snow days here in Munising. And there'll be other unforeseen circumstances, just like the time Altran's bus garage burned down and they lost half their fleet. But it's not always a disaster. Our totes were fine. They were able to clean them up and we never lost a book. But one of the totes, it was pretty covered with soot when it came back. We felt very lucky. We opened it up. There was no trace of smoke, no nothing. So we felt like we were maybe doing something that was meant to be. It was a close one for sure, but they kept the transit going and they rebuilt and they never missed a delivery for us. So what do I take away from this? Well, I take away that there are 6 keys to success. If you think you may be able to do this in your area, these are the secrets that I think are most important. You need to know who your key players are. You need to know who can help you and how they can help you. You need to talk to the people on your township boards. They love discussing things about how to make patrons and people out in their area happy, and this will make people happy. If you have a transit authority in your area, you need to get this on board, get them on board for this, because this is good for them and it's good for you. You need to talk to your patrons and find out how willing they are to go a little bit of a distance, because you can't always, as I always said, when you get the ambulance millage, they don't park the ambulance in your front yard. Well, it kind of works the same way for a library. We're not going to build a library next to your house. And you just need to know that the library can go that extra mile. We can bring some services, but we can't land it in your front yard. So how willing are you to go to make this program work? And you have to educate people. You have to let them know what your library does, because with this one service, we're able to let them know all of the services we have. They're far more receptive to what we're doing. So we thought everything was smooth sailing, and we got those key players on board. We got them listening to us. We got them learning about what we can do. And we also listened to what our patrons had to say. They got fired up. And so when we also were sending things to put on the shelves out in their area, we listened to them and gave them things that they wanted to see as well. The better you can build those relationships, the stronger their support for you is going to be. So we thought that we had this, pretty much nailed down, but that's not all, folks, because the board said that we should win hearts and minds. So we had a few more things that we thought we should do. So remember that I said I had put computers with printers for public access and downloading and nice fast Wi-Fi into those outlying township community buildings? Well, we did that, and we did that in 2010. We could not do all the townships with terminals, but we will be attempting at some point to get all of our townships up with Wi-Fi later this year. We listened hard to what Amanda had to say. Just make sure that when you do this, there's a large sign, one that points to it being possible because of the library funding. The Wi-Fi in our locations was already in place in those two spots when pandemic happened, and throughout this entire project, we've continued to upgrade, replace the equipment, and keep everything so that they have state of the art, what they need to do, when they need to do it. And the people have been very appreciative. Here you see some folks from Rock River Township, very, very happy with the new installation of computer that happened there. But the other thing we did was we began to take programming out on the road. Our location is not very big, but we're located in the middle and high school buildings, so we have access to all of their facilities. But outlying townships have facilities as well. So we took our summer reading programs, and some of them showed up on the road, and people loved that. We began to look around and found that there were other great places that could be used for all variety of programs. And it was amazing. After every single one of those events, people came up to us and asked us, how do I get a library card? It's super important to get to know your target communities and the interests of the people that are there. Schedule your programs around where the people are. Know the interests of the folks in your area. Advertise widely, not just in the community where you're going to do the program. And bring people together by doing that. Brand everything with your logo, and then attend and be very visible as a library. We knew we were spot on in the township of in the township of Burt Township, when a population of 313 people, where they only had 313, we were able to pack the community center for a speech by a world famous hiker on a super beautiful day in the middle of July in Pictured Rocks. We were just yards away from the trailhead of North Country Trail, but all of these people came in to listen to her. We shook a lot of hands that day. We handed out all our swag water bottles that had our library logo on it, and we felt like the community for our library had just grown as all of those people kept asking, how do I get a card? And when is your next program? So now I and my staff, I'm going to say, we will freely admit that we don't just spout ideas for things all on our own. It's because of great resources and wonderful encounters with people who do what we all do that these really good ideas arise. I'm going to say that when it comes to problem solving for outlying areas, everything I needed to know, I learned somewhere, sometime at Rural Library Conference or some other conference, or talking with one of you other directors or library people. I mined the treasure trove of handouts and thumb drives from Rural Library and MLA and everything to look for creative solutions, and I found encouragement and hope and inspiration. And most importantly, at the last Rural Library Conference, I was introduced to this in a breakout to this great book, Winning Elections and Influencing Politicians for Library Funding. Now, this is that book by Patrick Sweeney that I've heard referenced in quite a few different sessions before. And I found out in this book that what we had been doing for the libraries in our outlying areas, by seeing them initially as adversaries, and that what we needed to do was bring them to the table, was exactly how I needed to go about bridging the divide between making them an adversary and making them a supporter. So what we had been doing was telling our story. And when you tell your library story, patron by patron, you let them know what you have to offer. So each person that said to me, how do I get remote service? Or tell me more about how I can download. Or are you going to have a program in our area? Every one of those people, I tell as much of our library story, what we do, how we do it. And when I do, I see it come back to me tenfold. You just need to be creative. You need to look for partners, and you just need to be willing to give something a try. It might fail. It might fail terribly, but at least you try. So there's going to come a time when, after whatever service your library has provided, you reach this target that, evidence will come out that you've made it and you did what you accomplished. And so that's kind of a beautiful feeling. And I think it's one that you've all felt, and after doing something good, you've made it. I did this. I finished it. It's great. And it's a really good feeling. It's one I'm sure you've all felt. So Kristen Fonachario said that you need to find a way to measure that. And I didn't really know how to measure that until I saw this. I saw the same paper, the one that told everybody, don't vote for this. It'll never do anything for us. And I saw this wonderful article, how excited that the editor was that this speaker was going to come right to Grand Marais. And he put in there gladly that it was a presentation sponsored by the Munising Public Library. And I knew right then that was my measurable difference. Something had changed. I'm not going to say that this will work in your area, but just trying to get remote services, maybe not, but doing something that takes your library out of its physical four walls and putting it into the community that maybe doesn't have a library space or doesn't have any other services going on might be, the difference for all of the support that you get. Results are everything, though. And so in 2012, the County Library Board was successful in renewing their millage, with only a slight loss in now one township. In 2018, they renewed again, and this time with countywide success and a resounding 2-1 victory in Burt Township. 2-1. That was huge. For us, it was really huge, though. We at Munising School Public had succeeded in changing the hearts and minds, and the County Library Board, therefore, continued their contract with our library for us to continue giving countywide services. So what about that newspaper man? The guy who wrote the article? I found him. I talked with him extensively, and I taught him something. And he downloads from Libby now. When articles are now positive, we changed his mind, and we've continued to change them one at a time. So if anyone has any questions, I see something in chat. No, man, there you go. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
Lisa.
Yes.
How do you, or how often do you do library card signups at some of these remote areas that you send them to?
Not enough, to be perfectly honest. Whenever I go up, I'll go up quite frequently to Burt Township just to, like, maybe one time I'll show up when I know that, it's right around the time that the delivery will happen, because they actually told me that people wait, they kind of like, oh, it's going to be today. And so I'll go up just to kind of spend the day talking with the people at the township and seeing people come in. And, I'll sign people up for library cards right there. But I haven't done an official one in quite a while. We had a number of people that signed up the last time, but we get people calling us And so we'll send, we'll send an application out to them and we'll get them to register online. And generally they'll end up coming in. But it's something that I think as we start to branch out to the rest of the townships that are in our county, we'll probably do them again. So, I think it's your comfort level, and it's also, how much your township is on board. We have township officials who are literally telling people, you can get this library card, call them up right now, you can register online. And that has helped tremendously.
Lisa, how did you get buy-in from the places to have the books? Is that by volunteers there? Because that is our biggest issue.
They have a township employee, and years and years and years ago, our library wrote a grant, and they tried to get the townships to launch their own little libraries. In Rock River Township, that didn't amount to a whole lot more than books on a shelf, but it did. The original grant funded some monies for the township to have a part-time employee that would kind of, service people with the hopes that that library would grow. The township never wanted to increase the funding because after the grant wore out, the whole point was they were supposed to try and build this library. But that didn't work out. They do have books on a shelf that are in the township office, and people can kind of on an honor system kind of do things. But we worked with them and said, listen, we want to put this in. We know you have people there. We'll put the Wi-Fi in, we'll put the computer there, and we'll send materials out. So when your office is open, people can come and they can, pick up the stuff that's for them. Plus we'll have all of these new, like we put bestsellers out there and magazines and you name it, all kinds of stuff, audiobooks. And we know we're going to have some kind of loss on this, and it's difficult to get statistics on what happens with that, but we know how much we send out and how much comes back. They were happy to participate with that. We're hoping that that's going to grow in that area, and as we look to branch out into another township, that it will grow there. In Bird Township, they're doing very well. They have somebody that the township there pays, and he basically handles the stuff. But we originally got them to do that with grant money.
Okay. Yeah, because we just have all these dead zones. We've got the same problem with you as distance. And when I drive to Curtis and I'm driving along 28, and I'm like, all of these people are in my district. Where are they going?
How do I get those?
Yes.
How do I reach those people? And everybody says, oh, well, just audiobooks and ebooks online.
No.
Like how? I have so many people that are off the grid that you have to be able to find a place where they're going. And in Rock River Township, like I said, it serves 3 other townships, but their library sits right next to the grocery store. The only grocery store in 3 townships.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Can I do like gas stations, grocery stores, laundromats? I mean, I just got to get buy-in from these
Do you
people.
guys remember the BTOP grant? I don't know how many you remember way back in the day, and the stimulus money, Barack Obama bucks and stuff like that. And we all got those computers. One of the things that they said during that time period was set up these computer stations, and they were talking about community centers and township halls and way back then. And that's really, I mean, what you can do. You just got to find somewhere to put it that's, going to be secure. So it's very possible. And partnerships can be made with just about anybody. You just have to find a way to do it. I'm going to stop my share here. Anybody else? I don't know. It's funny because I talk about it and it seems like it's unique, but we've been doing it for so long, it's just normal. But the regional buses, you're right, Patty. The buses are key. I cannot say enough about Altran. They are fantastic. Their pricing, basically, I was able to convince them that, you know, my totes don't take up any more space than a rider. So basically, I'm charged as a rider. Now, if they're making a separate trip just to Grand Marais, just to deliver my tote, it's going to have a higher rate. But even so, I remember being foolish enough to ask Walco at one point what they would charge to make a trip to Grand Marais. And they told me they wanted $13,000 for a year. And I'm like, what? You know, are you kidding me? You know? So I don't know how, I think we're just about out of time. Where are we at? Hi, Amanda.
Hi, I just wanted to share with Lisa Watkins, one of the, we have station stops that we service with the bookmobile, the give and take of library books. And we have those in all of our local post offices. And it's just, bookshelves. And so that might be one of those locations that is already open to the public. And, we just book donations and they work well. We have them in a couple doctor's offices and then also in a couple gas stations as well as the post offices. So I'm looking to get outside little free libraries at the township halls because none of our township halls have any kind of staffing. So, but go ahead.
Do they have office hours, open office hours?
No, except for when it's time to pay your tax.
Right. We have the same problem.
Those are the only office hours. And in fact, some of township halls don't have open office hours at the township halls. They have open offices at the township clerks' houses because they're more accessible than the township halls. That's rural living.
Great. Thank you, everyone. I'm not the best presenter. I always have to read. So I thank you for your patience. So I'm a rambler. So anyone else have any questions, call me. If you want to take a ride to Grand Marais, I'll do it in a heartbeat. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa.